Welcome back to the channel. D2 here, taking on the topic of file chaos. So after a while, 20 sessions later, we start having all these files laying everywhere and it becomes a total drag. Thought I would show how I organize my files from shoot through process, including archiving. If you already have a great file system, this is not the video for you. If you do not have a good file system, stay tuned. Here we go. So, basic first step, have a unique drive and folder where you can store everything. Don't mix it in with everything else on your computer. Don't mix it in with your regular photos. Make sure that it has a dedicated area. So I call mine targets. This drive is a 4 terabyte SSD dedicated to my astrophotography. And I have a targets folder. Inside the targets folder, I have a pretty simple setup. First thing I have is a bad subs directory. This is just for processing when I'm deleting subs visually through Blink. I throw them into this folder first, mostly because I kind of like to look through them before I delete them and get an idea of what's going on with my mount, etc. if there's some significant problems on a particular session, but then I delete those. Next thing I have is what I call the incoming folder. I have 2 telescopes right now, and I'm planning on getting a third, if not a fourth. In this folder, I have a folder for each telescope. This is the model of the computer for each one, U57, U59. I utilize a program called Free File Sync. After I get done shooting a session, I'll launch Free File Sync, and it is configured to drop the files in here. And then the same thing for my larger telescope. It's configured on, it's a model U59 B-Link, comes into a different folder. Then after those are come in, they'll have a date on them, and a date would be something like this without this extra home FLT. It just comes in with just a date. So once I have a shoot come in by date, I will drag the shoot over to the target name in my work in process. So work in process are all the targets or current shoots or additional sessions have been added to previous shoots that have not yet been processed. I keep all of them in here. So this, I've actually been piling up quite a bit of data. I have not been processing my photos for a while just because I'm looking at some new workflows and processes, and I just don't want to go through it multiple times. But I would copy in the date directory into this folder for a new session, and then I use a naming scheme based on the location, and I have nicknames. So obviously home is at my house, farm has my parents' family farm, and then I put the telescope I shot with on there, an abbreviation for it. So this is my GT Gran Turismo 81 William Optics telescope. This is my William Optics 132, and then the camera at the end. This is my 2600 mm. I only shoot in mono, so I don't have mm on this. If I ever got an MC camera, I would just designate that one as MC and leave these ones without designation. These are all the individual sessions I have shot for M106 as an example. After, and these are the base collections that came from the session. So these have not been modified. And I use Nina to do my shoots. So the structure follows according to, doing darks and dark flats and regular flats every night. The next thing is when I go to process inside of PixInsight, I will set up a folder. Before I had more than one telescope, I would just shoot with a master folder. But after I started collecting more and more sessions, and I would do a processing run for each of the shoots or versions of the shoots, then I started labeling it after the telescope itself and with a version number, or the telescope and the camera, because there's a chance that I might move the cameras between each of the telescopes. I generally shoot the same setup with the GT81 1600 and the FLT 132 with the 2600. For me, without a designation of a camera, it's the default camera. So that's the setup for the files. And inside processing PixInsight itself, if I make a project or for that processing session with that set of data, I will save the project inside of this folder. Once I'm in PixInsight and get ready to do a processing session, I will make a folder based on the telescope and the camera combination, and I will even put in a date or a version at the end sometimes if I know I've got multiple processes going on. So once I kick off my processing in PixInsight, I blink all of my subs, delete those. They go into the bad subs folder, which will eventually get deleted later. And then I run the subframe selector process and make an approved folder for all those. Inside of there, I will make by filter folders and save them in there. You don't have to separate these into folders if you don't want to. If you haven't combined, you can do something like look for file names that have a pattern in them. Like I have underscore filter letter in my files, so this is how I could find them if they were all combined with hydrogen and oxygen in one folder, and select those. Then I could click select all those and open them, copy them, whatever I might need to do. I like to have them in separate folders. So other than the approved folders, when you run WBPP, these are all the folders that it makes, except for integrated, which is where I save the integrated images. Going back inside of a process folder, one of the other things I do is I make a final folder inside of each processing run and place any final images that I've produced in here. Another advantage of having all your sessions for each target together is you can combine multiple telescopes outputs into an image. Maybe something I would talk about in another video. Other people have covered it in terms of scaling the various field of views into one photograph. I like to do things like shoot stars with my 81 while my 132 is working on a narrowband image. That way I don't have to commit time to the 132, and I've got limited session time. And I'll use the stars out of the 81, or if I've shot the stars with the 81 previously, I can bring those into the 132 because it has a wider field of view and it will always cover the target area for the 132. Once I've finished processing and maybe posting a photo to my Astrobin, I take the folder from here and move it over to my process folder. And I highlight them green because I like to keep track of which ones I have backed up to another archive process. Initially, when they come in here, they won't be a green icon, and you can set the green icon by going into properties, customize, change icon, and I just flip through here till I found the icon right here to set it after I've backed it up. If I pulled this back in to be processed again, so I drug it up here and went back into targets, work in process, I would undo that folder marking while it's being processed. Then it comes back in here. I will find that which ones need to be backed up. Once they're done, change your icons. Going back to one that's already processed, you can see these were original sessions, 2 different telescopes. I have a folder for each one being processed. You have the masters come in here. Here's the old approved. I have deleted all of the intermediate processes from WBPP. I did keep the final integrated files here. I also kept the original approved subs, so I can rerun against the original approved subs. And we also have the masters, so I can reuse the master flats, darks, etc. from that run. One of the reasons I like to run things inside of this, not only are these the items I have unprocessed, when I run in PixInsight, depending on how your paths get set, if you come back to a project later and run it, and it's possible you could have, I can't remember the name of the setting, a case where it has like fixed paths remembered. If you have moved that to another folder and open it, it could error out trying to find all of the related files. So that's the other reason I move it back into this work in process. That's what WIP stands for, work in process, and run it from here. Then I'll always have consistent path naming inside of every process that I've run historically or in the future. The other thing I keep in here is under work in process. This is a template. This template has got all my icons and starting workflow desktop for PixInsight. So I can open that project template before I pick one of these to process. And that's just another shortcut. The other thing I have up here is a masters folder. This masters folder is for each camera and historical dark flats, darks, and flats. A point in time set of flats I could use if I don't have a set for a particular photograph and I want to maybe just pull something close to what I could use. Darks, got all my temperatures here, and then I can just find one I need. So you can see how simplified this is. Come in to do a photo, I can say, oh, which one do I want to work on? Work on this one till I have a session going already. You can see how far along I've gotten because I have run WBPP against it already. You can look at my masters. Maybe I go down to this one. Haven't even started it yet. I just have a session listed in here. A lot of sessions in here. This is actually one I just shot with my larger 132. The other thing I do is I keep statistics files. I might run out of PixInsight for like full width, half maximum numbers, other stats coming out of Blink or coming out of subframe selector. I could save them here. There's another one, butterfly I just shot. Haven't started yet, except for I set the directory getting ready to do it. I'm pretty excited about butterfly. So anyway, that's how I do my basic file organization. I recommend if you get hooked on this hobby, I'll call it, as I have, that you don't wait too long to get organized. You don't want to figure this stuff out later when you got, a couple thousand files sitting in with all your other photographs, etc. I am up to 80 some nights, and of that 100 and some sessions by the time you count 2 telescopes, and I'm well over 12,000 subs that are post Blink subs, so usable subs, and it's only gonna go through the roof. Been doing this for 2.5 years, and I'm already needing to find ways to prune files I don't need and start looking at getting more storage. Anyway, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will try to continue to make little tips. I'm not going to redo all the tutorials that are out there. I think there's a lot of good videos out there for basic processing, and I'm looking at finding areas that are not talked about, especially for beginner going to intermediate, where you know how to do things, but looking at ways to be better organized, more efficient, and optimizing to get every little bit out of a photograph or your equipment. So that's where this series, or this set of tips that I'm producing, is focused. Anyway, clear skies. Thanks for watching.